In this video, we're going to go over the ins and outs of throwing swim jigs. What's up everybody? Welcome back to Inspiration Outdoors. I'm Jake McHugh, and today we're covering swim jigs. We're going to go over the colors, the size, the type of swim jigs I use, the rods, and the trailers that I throw. So we got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get right into it. But first, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. That way you can get more fishing tip videos like this in the future. First jig that we're leading off with is the finesse swim jig. And now this is right here is the Dirty Jigs finesse swim jig. It is your typical northern style swim jig. It's got a 50 strand half cut skirt on it and a thinner wire hook. And this is perfect for when you want a smaller or slender profile and when the bait fish are smaller where you're fishing. I typically use this in really super clear water or when I'm targeting smallmouth. The size right here that I throw this jig in is 5/16, and that happens to actually be the only size that I throw this swim jig in. So this is the finesse swim jig. So the next jig that we're going over here is the standard Dirty Jig swim jig. And what this is here is this is a 50 strand full skirted jig, and that gives it a slightly bulkier profile for when they're targeting on bigger bait fish or you're fishing a little bit dirtier water. The hook on this one is a standard 5/0 3X Mustad hook. It's very easy to set the hook on fish, but yet it still has the flipping hook toughness or strength so it doesn't bend out. And this is a great all-around size swim jig in my opinion. Now, I typically only throw the standard size swim jig in one size, and that is the 3/8 ounce. I like that. I feel like it's a great all-around size. So standard swim jig gets the 3/8 ounce head. Now last but not least, my favorite, the no jack swim jig. This swim jig has the standard full 50 strand skirt here, giving it that bulky presentation, but it has the no jack hook on it. And this hook here is the thickest hook that you'll find on a swim jig, and you can throw this in the gnarliest of cover. I am not afraid to throw it anywhere and everywhere, and that's what makes this one so great. Now with this swim jig here, I throw it in two different sizes. I carry it in the 3/8 and the half, and the reason being is I'll throw it in such heavy cover like lily pads where it creates that canopy, and it's hard to get a 3/8 with a trailer through those pads. So I use the 1/2 ounce to kind of punch through it and then punch through the weeds. So if you want to catch big fish, go after the big ones, this is the swim jig for you. Now when it comes to colors, you want to match the hatch. Whatever the bait fish that you have in the body of the water that you're fishing is what you want to match your swim jig to. I don't often match shad up here in Wisconsin. Our bass typically feed on bluegill or brim, but when I do imitate shad, I'm throwing the spot killer. This is like a chartreuse and white with some black spots in it. This is a great color, but I'll make sure to link down in the description some other shad imitators. Next up, we got black and blue. You always need black and blue. It doesn't matter what kind of bait you're throwing. You got to have some variation of black and blue when you're bass fishing. This is a great color and stain the dirty water. Even in the spring, it's a great springtime black and blue always shines and works really well. So always got to have a black and blue for your muddy water needs. Next, you're going to want some type of bluegill imitation. I recommend either Alabama brim or some type of just standard bluegill. Either one works. I have great success with both of them, but definitely need to get yourself a bluegill color swim jig. That's my favorite color. Last but not least, you need an Alabama craw as well. And this is great for when you're fishing it towards the bottom of the water column. This is great for imitating crayfish, but also what I think is very overlooked is a lot of times if you look at different types of sunfish, pumpkin seed, bluegill, bait fish that the bass feed on, they have an orange underside to them, and that's where this jig shines because this imitates that. So not only does it imitate a crayfish if you fish it along the bottom, but you throw a standard green pumpkin trailer on the back of this, you got yourself a bluegill imitator as well. So Alabama craw. Alright, so when it comes to trailers, there's a bunch of different kinds that you can throw, but there's really only two different types that I throw, and that's a swim bait and a craw. And basically, when it comes to craws, I try to get the one with the most action on it. I want it to just kick those appendages to just kick and just make a bunch of commotion in the water. And when I'm using this, I'm physically pumping the rod as I'm reeling it in, and that also helps the bait kind of make more action as I'm reeling it in. When it comes to swim baits, it's actually pretty easy. What I do is I actually kind of cut the head off a little bit. As you can see, I take about just, you know, half an inch off from the end of the swim bait, the head of the swim bait, and then I thread it on completely. And basically all you do is you just chuck and wind. You just cast and reel it in. And when you get a good swim bait on the side and you get the right size on it, what it'll actually do is it'll overpower the swim jig, is what I call it, and it'll actually rock that swim jig back and forth while the tail is kicking. And what that is, it's just so deadly, because you have the primary action of the swim bait tail kicking, but then you have the secondary action of the skirt pulsing around the jig and the head rotating. And what that does is that imitates like gills flashing or a fish swimming in the water a lot better than if you just throw a standard swim bait. So those are the two different types of trailers that I use. As far as colors go, I try to match the jig as best as I can. It's you know, for Alabama or like your bluegill needs, spray grass, sungill are great colors. Black and blue, you're gonna want to throw a black and blue swim bait on the back, or a black and blue craw. Alabama craw, same thing, either a sungill, a green pumpkin, or an Alabama craw type trailer. As far as what swim bait trailers that I recommend when I'm using swim jigs, I really like the Reaction Innovation Skinny Dipper the best. A cheaper alternative option would be the Berkley Havoc Grass Pig. That's a really cheap option. You can throw a Keitech on the back of it if you want. That's a little bit more of an expensive option that has more tail kick, less roll, so that works better in colder water. But typically I'm throwing something like this that has a lot more roll. Another one is the Gambler Big Easy. I'll have links down in the description for all the different trailers that I use. When it comes to throwing swim jigs, I got two different rod setups. The first one that I use is the Loomis E6X series rod. This is the 843C. This is a 7-foot medium heavy fast rod. I use this one for the finesse and the standard size swim jig. I like a 6:3 to 1 gear ratio. I like a good all-around size gear ratio, not too slow, not too fast. And I typically throw a 30-pound straight braid to the swim jig. Sometimes if I fish in really clear water, finicky fish, then I'll opt to either 15 to 17 pound fluoro, but typically I am throwing this in heavy cover or like around grass, so I just throw the straight braid. The second rod setup, this is for my no jack, and that's the only thing I throw this rod with, and that's the Doybns 735C. This is the Fury series. Great rod for the money. It's a 7.3 meg heavy fast. Lot of backbone. A good tip on it though, it helps me rip it out of the grass because I'm throwing this in heavy cover. I'm ripping it through cover like crazy. But yet it has a good bend to it when I'm fighting fish so I don't lose them. As far as reels go, I got a 7 to 1 gear ratio. I'm going high speed reel. Get that fish hooked, get them out of the cover as soon as I can. So that's when the high speed reel comes into play. And then I'm running 40-pound braid, and I only use straight braid right to the jig. So no jack, you definitely want to beef up your setup a little bit because you got a thick hook that you got to penetrate through the fish's mouth. Alright guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video here. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell so you get notified when the next one drops. And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.